All right, ladies and gentlemen, a critical position on Bitcoin calls for a Q&A video. I like to get your guys' opinion on the market in one collective video format, get a bunch of questions, answer them all. And I think you guys generally find it interesting because I touch on topics in these videos that I don't usually touch on in my regular videos. Sometimes for good reason, sometimes for not so good reason, okay? You guys oftentimes show me things that I'm not looking at, and oftentimes I'll give you the reason why I'm not looking at it as well. So it's generally a bit of a mixed bag, but I pick out the questions that I think you will find especially interesting and answers that I think I need to give, that the market kind of demands or the audience demands. So I've got part 2 here today. We did part 1 a couple of days ago or yesterday. Now, don't worry, they're not connected. You can watch them in any particular order. In part 1, we answered the following questions. We answered the question about the extended cycle scenario, how I think that's not actually on the table, how I think the only scenario really at this point is a bear market as per the cycle or a break of the cycle itself. I think the idea of an extension is kind of strange and bizarre, and I gave my reasons for that. I gave you my top 3 favorite indicators for tops and bottoms. I gave you my opinion on the 1-month chart MACD and the 1-week super trend indicator, which are both decent indicators, but I think there's better alternatives. And that was yesterday's or the day before's video. 3 very important questions that I answered there. Now today we don't have 3, but we have actually 5 questions. One of them on where Bitcoin will see, if we continue with this bear market, that's the assumption made in the question, where Bitcoin will see a dead cat bounce from. We have a question about the Trump party, but I call it the Trump party because it basically is that at this point, the Republican Party, their stance on markets, how it's affecting markets. I think my opinion on that will maybe surprise you quite a little bit there. We have a question about altcoins, what you should do if you're holding altcoins, and we have a question about my bear market bottom projections, assuming the cycle remains, because of course my top prediction for 130,000, which I made, by the way, in late 2023, I said 130,000 was the likely level Bitcoin would top at, was reached, pretty much spot on. And so what's next is the question there. A bit of assumptions when it comes to predictions in regards to bear market tops and bear market bottoms and bull market tops, but it's interesting just to get a framework of what we're working with and to get an idea. That's the main point, getting an idea of what might happen, what the likely scenarios are. So 5 questions today. I've dragged out the introduction a bit too long. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into it. Before we do so, go ahead and check out the Bitunix Exchange. I post these videos for free. I've posted 1,300 of them for free, and that's only made possible via me talking about exchanges. I don't just talk about any exchange, and I don't have a contract. I don't work for Bitunix. I chose to discuss Bitunix because I use it personally for trading on a daily basis, pretty much. It's my major exchange at this point. It's my main exchange. And the reason I choose it is because it's global, non-KYC. We can get around a lot of regulations on regions that aren't available on many major exchanges. And the second reason, the most important reason, is it's never been hacked before. Not a single security breach in close to 5 years of data in trading on this exchange. So very good stuff from Bitunix. Use my link down below to sign up if you're interested. Get a 15% lifetime trading fee discount exclusively with that link down below. It helps out the channel a lot, and it helps out you by getting on a great exchange. So use that link to sign up. It takes 30 seconds. Appreciate it, guys. Let's get into it. First question, is Bitcoin correlated to the S&P 500? The correlation between Bitcoin and the S&P 500 is not as direct as some people will have you believe. Some people also just say that they're correlated just to make things easier. Yes, they are correlated in the way they move, but they're not connected, okay? There's a difference between those terms, correlated and connected. They're correlated, they move together, but they move together because they're both attached to an external force, which is the macroeconomy and macroeconomic factors. So it's not a one-to-one correlation. Imagine that this circle here is Bitcoin and this circle here is the S&P 500. They're not connected like this. They are both connected to a thing up here, which is the macroeconomy. That's a bit of a suspicious drawing, but you get the point. And due to the fact that they're not connected but merely correlated, you can see significant deviations in what they do. For example, about a month and a half after the Bitcoin topped out, the S&P did. So they didn't top out together in 2021. It was a month and a half later. In this cycle, the S&P 500 has not seen such a catastrophic breakdown like Bitcoin has. And that's, not out of the ordinary. It's not a reason to be bullish on Bitcoin per se, because again, it hasn't even been the month and a half quite yet. It was a month and a half in 2021. And also the S&P has seen a local top, so it could develop into a more severe correction. Now, obviously, if the S&P 500 starts flying to the upside, that is cause for some degree of bullishness. That just hasn't happened yet. There's not much bullish evidence coming from this chart at this point. But to answer your question more directly, no, they're not necessarily connected. They are, like you said, correlated, but it's a bit more nuanced than people make it out, as I've explained here. The next question is essentially asking where I think we'll see a dead cat bounce from, assuming we are in a bear market, and that is a little bit of an assumption. It's not quite fully confirmed yet, but again, we have to make assumptions in order to get anywhere with analysis. So can we go downwards straight from here to 74,000, or will we bounce in this region is the question, essentially. Both are critical levels. Simply put, both are critical levels. In fact, we could see a bounce from both, quite frankly. We have 88,000 as a support zone horizontally with the weekly chart Gaussian channel center line, one of the most important indicators on the Bitcoin chart, full stop, period, point blank. Okay, this indicator, the center line, triggers bear markets outright, triggers bull markets outright. When we move through it in a major way. We are sitting right on top of it right now as we speak. We also have critical support a bit lower. Again, like you mentioned in the question, somewhere like $74,000 is where the 2021 all-time high is roughly, is where we saw resistance back here in 2024. It's where we saw support back here in March as well. Both are critical regions. And frankly, both could very well be the zones in which we see dead cat bounces from. We could see a dead cat bounce from both regions. At this point in time, I wouldn't be, if I was hypothetically holding here, which I'm not, sold long ago on this YouTube channel, advocated for it long ago, weeks ago at this point. If I was holding right now as we speak, this would not be a zone in which I'd be willing to sell. I'll say that. Sitting on the weekly chart, Gaussian channel, sitting on a support level, which has been marked by support in 2024 and also back here in March this year in 2025, during the rejection zone of the tariff corrections we saw across financial markets. We're also currently sitting, if you look at the total cryptocurrency market cap, it's kind of a similar circumstance to Bitcoin, except we've got the 2021 all-time high. So this zone right here, right now, is a support zone that could very well lead to a dead cat bounce. We'll know very shortly. We'll know when we see the weekly candle close, for example. And I think really talking about what's going to happen at $74,000, we're looking too far ahead, quite frankly. This is a dead cat bounce zone. And for that reason, if we do see a bounce here, it should be treated with heavy caution. That's why I've said on this YouTube channel, I'm not going to be flipping bullish again unless all-time highs are broken. At this point, with the cyclical evidence we have, all-time highs very much need to break in order for any serious bullishness to actually happen. We need to break the cycle entirely in order for any serious macro bullishness to take place in any valid way. Because again, this is a dead cat bounce zone, and bouncing here doesn't really mean anything at this part of the cycle. So I know I didn't answer your question in the way you probably wanted me to answer the question, but frankly, 74,000 and the current region we're in are both very plausible dead cat zones, very plausible bounce zones, and I don't really feel like I'm justified to say which one is more likely to see a bounce from. We could see bounces from both. I don't see any reason to distinguish between them. Moving forward into the next question, long question here, basically about my opinion on what Trump and MAGA and Republican Party is doing to financial markets. Ultimately, it's noise, in my view. I know there's a lot of things going on, corruption, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to make this channel political. I've got no interest in that. Actually, I like to focus on the charts themselves. What I see is a bunch of noise, a bunch of news articles, yes, a bunch of corruption, yes, a deterioration of norms. However, what I also see is the same bloody cycle that Bitcoin has always had continuing to play out. The exact same stuff is happening with different context, so far at least. Now, speak to me in a couple months, maybe it's changed, but at this point, we've still seen the October top in 2025. At this point, we still look like we're in a bear market that will end in 2026. It's business as usual, just with a different suit on, and different headlines and more hype, at least for financial markets at this point in time. Now, the first part of this question I don't quite understand. He says there's no hope for altcoins to recover until Q2 2026. I've never said that on this YouTube channel. I don't know where that's coming from, but I will answer the second part. What's the best advice for altcoins right now? Hold, sell, buy, etc. I think at this point, it's been very clear. I made a video on this. last week on the altcoin market. Go ahead and watch it for my full thoughts. It's clear that the altcoin market has dramatically underperformed this cycle. It's clear that Bitcoin's price action simply did not facilitate the hype that the altcoin market needed. Long, drawn-out corrections that last 6, 7, 8 months do not breed hype for altcoins. And at this point, given the cyclical context, it won't surprise you to have me say this, I think that altcoin holding right now is very risky. Now, given the actual midterm context, like given where we are right now, currently, looking at that again, bringing it back to the Gaussian channel on the weekly chart, bringing it back to the monthly chart MACD, bringing it back to the support zone at 88,000. Maybe right now, today, this instant is not the place to be spam selling, in my personal view, given the support we currently have here, given what rides in the support zone. But overall, you're late to the party. We've advocated for selling, advocated for cautiousness on this YouTube channel since 120,000 on the altcoin market. Never even bloody advocated for buying on altcoins full stop, period, on this YouTube channel. Maybe right way back here in, I think it was November, what was it? It was 2024 November. It was a brief period of time in which I was bullish on altcoins. But other than that, this whole time I've recognized the altcoin market has not been in an altcoin season. We haven't seen altcoin breakouts. The total 3 never broke its all-time high, which is a shocking red flag for the altcoin market. In fact, it still currently sits in this massive ascending channel formation on the logarithmic chart, on the linear chart. And so, things have never looked good for altcoins in this cycle. I wouldn't even, I wouldn't even have advocated for holding them for the entirety of 2025. Right now as we speak, the medium-term basis, there is support here. Selling into support, not generally the best idea. But looking to get out would be the move that I'd personally be taking. Unless, of course, we swung right back to all-time highs again, in which case you can always just buy back when the clarity is there. There's no clarity for altcoins right now. The only clarity we have for altcoins is there was no altcoin season, and there's weakness, and Bitcoin's not facilitating their positive performance. So altcoins look weak. Final question, your BTC top prediction of $130,000, which I made in late 2023, was pretty much spot on, obviously assuming we have top, which is an assumption. Where do you expect the price of the bottom to be? Well, given the fact that that projection, I like to call it rather than prediction, seems to be at least very much spot on, like you said, we can simply use the same metric I used to make that prediction in the first place, which is the cycle in combination with the logarithmic regression channel. I've also used diminishing returns in the past. We can do that again in a second here, but basically what we can analyze is what the cycle is doing. The cycle said the top would be October 2025. We've never broken this logarithmic regression channel before. The angle of ascension between tops and bottoms halves each cycle. It brought us to 130,000. We tested it 4 separate times. We rejected. If that was the top, there's no reason not to trust this again. And that would bring us to a bottom, as per the cycle, looking at about October 2026, about a year after the top, and we've got into the specifics on that date range measurement many times, at about $36,000, okay? And taking into account diminishing returns, if we look at, I've done this extensively in the past, 86% correction in 2014, an 84% correction in 2018, a 77% correction in 2021, taking the average and splitting the difference there brings us to a correction of about 70% in this bear market, which would bring us to about $36,000. So independent verification using a diminishing returns formula, which I did in a YouTube video about 2 weeks ago. You can very clearly see that from the title of that YouTube video. Go ahead and watch it. I think that $36,000 region is very much on the table if this was the real top. When it comes to projections in price, I don't like doing it too much. I trust the cycle. The cycle is based on dates, not price, but we can get an idea of where things will go. Now, obviously, if we're pushing into September 2026 and we're still at 50K, all right, maybe we can adjust and say that 36,000 isn't plausible anymore. But at this point, this early in the cycle we're in right now, which has just started, it does look like 36,000, as low as 36,000, is plausible. Again, we can adjust and adapt as the time moves on and as data progresses, but that looks plausible at this point. Guys, thank you for watching. Apologies for my throat. It's a little bit croaky right now. I'm a bit sick, and I'm also on an iPad, so kind of in the wars a little bit from a content creation perspective, but hopefully I got some good information out there. If you found any of it useful, go ahead and subscribe, leave a like down below, join the free Telegram group if you're interested in discussing with members of the community. That's a better way to do it than the comment section in my view. YouTube has a big problem with bots in the comment section. If you found it interesting, you found it engaging or useful, go ahead and leave a like below and subscribe, and also check out the Bitunix Exchange. It's kind of unrelated to whether you like the video or not. It's just a good exchange. You also get a 15% trading fee discount for life permanently with my referral link down below. So support the channel, use that link to sign up, get access to a global exchange, get access to an exchange that's never been hacked before. Use that link down below, helps the channel a lot. I appreciate it, guys, and I'll catch you soon.